Hello and welcome back to Folktales with Shafi. Today, we conclude the story of Mutiso, the wicked man from Kenya. If you missed the previous parts, be sure to check them out. Now, let's see what became of Kitumo village after his reign of terror. Years passed. Time, like a gentle river, began to smooth the sharp edges of grief in Kitumo. The village slowly healed, though scars remained, faint like marks on old wood. The forest, once a place of dread, grew green and vibrant again. New huts, full of new life, rose near the river, and the laughter of children who had never known Mutiso echoed through the fields. But the older ones, the ones who remembered, they still turned their heads when the wind howled at night. The memory of fear is a stubborn ghost. Baraka, the young boy who had faced Mutiso, was a man now. He had become a pillar of the community, a testament to resilience. He helped rebuild the market, its stalls once again overflowing with yams and bright fabrics. He repaired the old well, its water now clean and life-giving. He even started a new tradition, gathering the children to tell them stories, not of monsters, but of kindness and truth. Yet, every time he walked near the hills where Mutiso's shadow once loomed, he felt a familiar tightness in his chest, a memory that refused to fade. It was a cold whisper from the past, a question that hung in the air. One morning, while cleaning the well, his hands brushed against something wedged between the stones. He worked it free. In his palm lay a small bead, black and shiny, catching the morning light. His heart hammered against his ribs. It looked exactly like the ones Mutiso used to wear, a relic of a dark time. He stood there for a long time, the bead growing warm in his hand, his gaze lost in the dark water of the well. Then, almost involuntarily, he whispered into the stillness, "Are you still here, Mutiso?" Only his own echo answered back, a hollow sound from the depths. That evening, a sense of unease led him to Mama Tano's house. She was very old now, her face a beautiful map of wrinkles, her hair as white as ash. Her eyes, though tired, held the same deep kindness he'd always known. The room smelled of brewing tea and the comforting aroma of a wood fire. Without a word, Baraka opened his hand and showed her the bead. "What do you think this means?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Mama Tano looked at it, her gaze distant. She didn't seem surprised. "It means memories never die," she said softly. "Even when people do." Baraka frowned, wrestling with the feelings the small object had stirred. "He caused so much pain, so much suffering. Why do I still think of him? Why does this bother me?" "Because you are human, Baraka," she replied, her voice gentle but firm. "We remember both the good and the bad. Forgetting doesn't heal, understanding does. The wound doesn't disappear just because you stop looking at it." Baraka sat in the ensuing silence, the crackle of the fire filling the space between them. He thought of the terror, the division, the empty huts. Do you think he regretted any of it? He finally asked. Mama Tano sighed, a long, weary sound. Maybe his punishment was his own heart. The man who makes others fear him must live with that same fear in his own soul. He built a prison of terror, and in the end, he was its only prisoner. That night, for the first time in years, Baraka dreamt of Mutiso. The dream was strangely vivid. Mutiso stood by the river, not as a monster, but just as a man, looking at his own reflection in the water. But this time, his face was calm, the usual mask of cruelty gone. He looked up, his eyes meeting Baraka's across the dreamscape, and said softly, "Fear is a mirror. What you give to others comes back to you." And then, like smoke on the wind, the dream faded. Baraka woke to a bright sun and the cheerful song of birds. A strange sense of peace settled over him. He smiled a small, genuine smile, downed and walked outside into the new day. The weight in his chest was gone. From that day on, he told the children a new story. It was still the story of Mutiso, but its lesson had changed. It wasn't the tale of Mutiso the wicked man, but of Mutiso the warning. He would gather them close and say, "Once there was a man who thought fear made him strong. He hurt others so they would never hurt him. But in the end, fear became his only friend, and it ate him from the inside. Never live to make people afraid of you. Live so they trust you. That is real strength." The children listened, their eyes wide. Some were a little scared, some looked sad for the lonely man in the story. But all of them, in their own way, understood. The story wasn't just about a monster. It was about a choice. Years later, when Barocca was an old man himself, his hair as white as Mama Tano's had been, he walked to the hills one last time. The land had completely recovered. The grass grew tall, and the forest was peaceful. Near the spot where Mutiso's hut once stood, a place long since reclaimed by nature, he knelt. He took out the small black bead he had kept all these years and placed it in the soil, covering it with earth. "Rest now," he whispered. "The village remembers, and that is enough." He turned and began his slow walk back toward Kitumo. As he went, the wind blew gently through the trees. And if one listened very, very closely, it almost sounded like laughter. Not cruel, not mocking, just tired. The sound of a man, finally, after a long, lonely lifetime, letting go. Dear listener, this story carries a powerful lesson for us all. Fear is like smoke. It spreads fast and makes everyone blind. It can make you feel powerful for a moment, but it's an illusion. Do not live by fear, and do not make others afraid of you. Because, in the end, fear doesn't keep you safe, only keeps you alone. Be kind, be fair, and never, ever let your heart become like Mutiso's. Thank you for joining me on this journey with Folktales with Shafi. I hope this story has given you something to think about. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories from around the world. Until next time, stay kind and stay curious.